Hi. Today we will explain the storyline of a movie titled The Amateur, released in 2025. Okay, let's get right to the story. Charles Heller, aka Charlie, is a skilled codebreaker at the CIA. As usual, before leaving for work in the morning, Charlie chats with his wife, Sarah. That day, Sarah says goodbye as she leaves for a 5-day business trip to London. Before leaving, Charlie takes a look at the device he will use to repair the old Cessna plane, a gift from Sarah. A few minutes later, Sarah's ride arrives. Meanwhile, Charlie arrives at the CIA headquarters, which has tight security. His office is on the 5th floor. He greeted a colleague nicknamed the Bear, a CIA secret agent who felt indebted to Charlie. That day, he admitted that he needed Charlie's help to check a document. Long story short, Charlie started his work as usual. He continued his communication with a mysterious party named Inquilin, who sent several confidential files that Charlie had to decipher. They had been communicating for over 5 years, but Charlie still didn't know anything more about Inquilin other than that they were located in Istanbul. While he was working, Sarah called Charlie at the office just to let him know that she had arrived in London. After talking for a few minutes, the call ended. Charlie then moved to another room to decrypt a highly confidential document. Accidentally, he discovered files on illegal operations led by his immediate superior, Frank Moore. From those files, Charlie also watched news reports about a sudden drone attack that was later considered a suicide bombing. The Department of Defense denied that the attack was a misdirected operation by the United States Air Force and blamed local rebels. Charlie then left the room in shock. He told Carlos that he had accidentally opened the illegal operation file and was confused about what to do. Carlos advised Charlie to keep quiet and not tell anyone. The next day, Moore suddenly visited Charlie in his office. Without further ado, Moore invited him to meet Director O'Brien. Here, O'Brien reluctantly conveyed that there had been an attack at the hotel where Sarah was staying. 2 hostages were killed, one of whom was Sarah. Not only that, Moore also showed CCTV footage of the incident, clearly showing Sarah's face as one of the victims. Devastated, Charlie still couldn't accept Sarah's death. The next day, he urged Moore to investigate who the group was and who killed Sarah. However, Moore and his colleague, Caleb, easily asked Charlie to recover and leave the matter entirely to Moore's team. Sarah's body was returned from London a few days later. That night, Charlie opened Sarah's suitcase, where he found a puzzle gift that Sarah hadn't had the chance to give him directly. This only made him feel even more devastated. However, Charlie did not want to simply wallow in grief. He looked up news about the incident on social media and was determined to find out who was responsible without anyone's help. He obtained data on the 4 attackers and the sequence of events. According to his investigation, a few hours earlier, the group of attackers had held a meeting with their weapons supplier. For some reason, the meeting ended in chaos. The attackers then fled through the conference room, terrifying all the guests present. Sarah became a victim simply because she tried to save others. Sarah's kidnapper was identified as Mishka Blajic from Belarus, based in Moscow. They left in a group of 3. Another member detected was Lawrence Elish, a former South African Marine who handled weapons shipments for a larger group. Sarah's killer and the attack coordinator was identified as Horst Schiller. The group acted as intermediaries in the weapons distribution business and as mercenary recruiters. From the recording, Charlie concluded that the easiest member to reach was Gretchen Frank, a former member of the Armenian forces. She was in Paris and often stopped by a cafe to buy bread. After a tiring presentation, it turned out that Moore and Caleb already knew about Gretchen. Charlie was advised to see a therapist, Dr. Garrison, to help him deal with his grief. Charlie felt guilty, useless, and angry. He had tried to solve the mystery of Sarah's murder, but Moore refused to help, instead seeming to stall for time. Charlie refused to just give in. He continued his mission in his own way. He bypassed the tracking sensors in his office, then printed out all the illegal missions under Moore's command to blackmail him. Charlie threatened to leak all the data to investigative journalists at 3 major media outlets. He also said he had activated the dead man switch, which would automatically send the data in a few hours, and within 24 hours, the files would be released to the public. Moore was certainly stunned by Charlie's threat. He tried to intimidate Charlie, but finally asked him what he wanted. Charlie said he wanted the opportunity to find and fight his wife's killers through special training from the CIA and access to all CIA files. He also asked for cash and a new identity for his cover. Moore laughed at Charlie's request. However, after discussing it with Caleb, Moore reluctantly agreed to Charlie's request. Charlie was sent to the CIA's special training facility at Camp Peary, under the mentorship of Colonel Henderson. On the other hand, Caleb and Allie monitored Charlie's activities the previous day on CCTV footage to find out if the dead man switch mode was just Charlie's bluff. Caleb then searched all the rooms Charlie had visited. One of Charlie's co-workers revealed that Charlie had used a skimmer device attached to a printer and then rewritten the printer's software. Not only that, Caleb also searched Charlie's house and suspected all his activities at the office. They found a suspicious music CD, analyzed it, and tried to decrypt its contents. On the first day, Charlie practiced shooting. Then, he assembled explosives. Here, Charlie discovered his talent for assembling bombs. He was also given a new identity and taught to memorize his new ID under physical pressure. Next, Henderson taught Charlie how to kill his wife's murderer. After training Charlie for some time, Henderson said that Charlie had no killer instinct. After several hours of examining the CD, Allie concluded that Charlie had only been bluffing about the dead man's switch mode. However, after Moore instructed Henderson to send Charlie home, Charlie had already escaped. He took all his identities and used the janitor's card he had hacked. Everyone who had initially underestimated Charlie now realized how they had been deceived, and Charlie had achieved his goal. On the other hand, Moore discovered the long-range communication device Charlie had hidden in a paperclip. Meanwhile, Charlie was at the airport on his way to London. It turned out that he had a secret plan. A few hours later, Charlie transited in London on his way to Paris. He rented a hotel room directly across from the cafe Gretchen often visited. Using his advanced skills, Charlie hacked into Gretchen's cell phone GPS signal and obtained every location Gretchen had visited. By nightfall, Charlie had broken into Gretchen's apartment using lockpicking techniques he had learned from the internet. Within minutes, Charlie had successfully gained entry. Charlie photographed the calendar that recorded Gretchen's activities and took a gun from the desk drawer. Unfortunately, not long after he entered, Gretchen returned home. Charlie quickly got out and took up a position to shoot Gretchen. However, he couldn't bring himself to do it. In a state of fear, he decided to run away and return to the guest house. The next day, Charlie bought lots of flowers while keeping an eye on Gretchen. He waited for Gretchen in front of a clinic specializing in asthma and allergies. Once again, he disguised himself as a clinic employee and entered a room where Gretchen was monitoring her health in a glass room. At that moment, the real doctor happened to be leaving for another room. Without further ado, Charlie locked Gretchen in, then funneled the flower pollen he had collected through an air hose. Gretchen, who was extremely panicked, suddenly snapped at Charlie. With the last of his compassion remaining, Charlie apologized to Gretchen, but he would not release her until he knew where Horst was. Finally, Charlie released Gretchen. Although she was out of breath, Gretchen was still able to struggle with Charlie and fight back. Charlie chased Gretchen outside, but unfortunately, Gretchen was hit by a passing car and died on the spot. Charlie quickly took Gretchen's cell phone and fled before many witnesses could suspect him. Shortly thereafter, Charlie hurriedly left the city by bus. He stopped in Marseille, France. With no particular destination in mind, Charlie ended up stopping by a nightclub and drinking. There, he accidentally ran into Henderson. Charlie immediately ran as fast as he could to escape Henderson. However, the man was quite agile and managed to catch up with Charlie wherever he went. Charlie was finally cornered in a bar. Feeling that he had no way out, Charlie finally faced Henderson. Henderson said he knew Charlie's location from the signal of Gretchen's cell phone, which Charlie had taken. After chatting for a while, Henderson assumed Charlie would not be able to run away again. However, Charlie was more cunning. He had set up a small explosive with a timer. A few minutes later, people screamed in panic at the explosion that came from the door. This gave Charlie an opportunity to escape from Henderson. The next day, Charlie communicated with Inquilin to arrange a meeting in Istanbul. Inquilin gave Charlie brief instructions on how to meet him. A few hours later, Charlie got off the cargo plane ordered by Inquilin. He then told Charlie to go to a cafe and wait for Inquilin to give him a book. After sending a message, Charlie assumed that Inquilin was a man. However, suddenly a woman approached him and gave him a book. The woman then followed Charlie outside the cafe and told him to take off his hat and backpack so he wouldn't look like an American. Then, the woman told Charlie to go shopping alone and meet her again in a parking lot. After shopping, Charlie got into the woman's car. It was revealed that the woman was Inquilin, who had been in disguise for 6 years. She explained that Inquilin had been her husband, a former KGB agent and CIA asset, until he died. Since then, the woman had taken over her husband's role and remained on good terms with Charlie in case he needed help one day. In short, Inquilin felt something was off about her husband's death. For that reason, she was willing to help Charlie find Sarah's killer. Inquilin lived on the coast with a chicken farm that served as her natural alarm. Although she had lived alone safely for several years, Inquilin admitted that she remained vigilant. They then studied Horst, Elish, and Mishka's documents on the computer while strategizing. According to Charlie, Mishka was the closest in location. From Mishka's latest social media photo uploads, they were able to easily determine his position. Meanwhile, directors O'Brien and Moore negotiated Moore's future at the agency. O'Brien knew about Moore's illegal operations and warned him to stop them and cooperate better. After the brief meeting, O'Brien's assistant informed him that Henderson had been ordered by Moore without his prior knowledge. After tracking Mishka's location, Charlie said he would go to see Mishka in Madrid, Spain. That night, Mishka was having fun with his girlfriend and friends at a luxury hotel. While Charlie was away, he asked Inquilin to keep an eye on Henderson, who was hunting Charlie. While monitoring Mishka, Charlie studied the swimming pool frame and devised a plan to attack Mishka. Meanwhile, Inquilin, who was keeping an eye on Charlie, reported that Henderson and a male CIA agent were following him to the hotel lobby. This did not deter Charlie, but he had to stick to his plan. That night, Charlie approached Mishka, who was swimming alone. Charlie urged Mishka to tell him where Horst was. He also threatened to destroy the glass-hanging swimming pool with a tool he had modified. Refusing to tell him and instead moving away, Mishka ended up falling to his death from the swimming pool. Charlie's actions set off the hotel's emergency alarm, causing guests to flee for their lives. Henderson and the CIA agent chased Charlie to the laundry room. However, Charlie manages to escape after Henderson and the CIA agent clash. Charlie's whereabouts have also been detected by Caleb and O'Brien at CIA headquarters. When O'Brien tried to confirm Charlie's whereabouts with Moore, Moore diplomatically replied that he was giving Charlie time to mourn. O'Brien believed him, even though he knew the truth. Meanwhile, Caleb and Ali suspected a recording of a conversation between Charlie and Inquilin from the database. Caleb immediately ordered Ali to find Inquilin's location. As a result, one night when Charlie and Inquilin were resting, they woke up to the sound of strangers entering the house. Sure enough, the CIA had sent troops to capture Charlie and Inquilin. Quickly, the two rushed to escape, driving recklessly. Unfortunately, Inquilin was shot, so Charlie had to take over the fight alone. After leaving Inquilin's body in the parking lot, Charlie took Inquilin's cell phone and wandered aimlessly until the next day. He stopped briefly at a coffee shop. It turned out that Inquilin had been communicating with Elish and had arranged to make a transaction in Constanta, Romania. To avoid being tracked by the CIA, Charlie used his skills to manipulate his location first. Soon after, Elish appeared. However, Charlie was already hiding outside the meeting location. He left a box full of active bombs that would automatically explode if Elish closed the box or moved away from it. In a quandary, Elish complied with Charlie's wishes. Charlie asked about Horst's location. He said that Horst was in Russian waters and was negotiating with him to deliver the missiles he had ordered from Inquilin. However, Elish did not communicate directly with Horst, but through his men, Simon and Christoph. Under pressure, Elish handed over the cell phone he used to communicate with them. A few hours later, Charlie left for Russia by boat. When he arrived at the port, Charlie unexpectedly ran into a CIA agent he knew well, the Bear. The man had no intention of arresting him, but he persuaded him to return to America with him. However, Charlie politely refused. The Bear did not force him, but warned Charlie to be careful from now on. That night, Charlie bought some explosives that he would use later. The next day, he tried to find out the identity of the boat he had photographed at the harbor. He managed to find out the name of the large ship, but was unable to get any further information from the harbor workers because he did not speak Russian. He was so focused on the boat that he was caught off guard when someone quietly knocked him unconscious. It turned out that the person who hit Charlie was one of Horst's men. They eventually confronted each other on Horst's ship. After learning about Charlie's motives, Horst admitted that he sympathized with Sarah's death. However, he argued that he needed to kill Sarah in order to escape the police. After talking further, Horst tried to convince Charlie that he wasn't brave enough to kill him at close range. He gave Charlie a gun and challenged him. However, Charlie's main goal was not to kill him in such a violent way. Charlie had devised another plan. After satisfying himself that Horst felt threatened, Charlie lowered his gun and informed him that he had taken control of Horst's ship. Sure enough, suddenly, the ship sped off in the wrong direction. Charlie said they were now in Finnish waters, far from Horst's destination. Horst tried to remain calm and said that he himself had encrypted the ship's system. However, Charlie shook his confidence and said that he had been controlling the ship from a computer in his hotel room and was connected to Charlie's cell phone and watch. But Horst's men had destroyed the cell phone. In a panic, Horst also destroyed Charlie's watch. But it was too late. Outside, Interpol and the Finnish Navy had surrounded Horst's ship. Charlie admitted that he had contacted them. Soon after, troops boarded Horst's ship and broke in to arrest Horst's gang. Without resistance, Horst and his 2 men surrendered. Charlie was also secured and sent home. The next day, Director O'Brien announced at a press conference that he acknowledged the CIA had conducted illegal operations. However, the mastermind behind the operation had been arrested and would be punished accordingly. Meanwhile, Moore and Caleb were arrested without resistance. Charlie remained on duty at the CIA. Henderson expressed his admiration and gratitude to Charlie. After finding the piece he needed, Charlie managed to repair the Cessna plane, a gift from Sarah, and set off on his travels.